We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Glory UGA podcast, where we've got some big news to break down here today on the show, because as I predicted, #1 quarterback Jared Curtis has committed to the G. If all things hold, he will be a Georgia Bulldog this time next year. So we're going to talk a lot about that today, guys. We're going to break it down from every single angle. Why did he pick Georgia? How good is this guy? Is he really the #1 quarterback in the country? What does it all mean for Georgia? We're going to break this down from every angle. But first, make sure, guys, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to this channel right now. All you diehard Georgia fans, you're not going to want to miss any of the content we're going to have for you guys leading all the way up to the start of the 2025 football season, of course, all the way through the 2025 season as well. Going to have a ton of stuff designed for all you diehards out there, so check that out. So subscribe, like, comment, and check out full episodes of our show wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever. Got a ton of content out there for you guys. But all right, with that, let's get into today's show. Huge news for the Dogs, and I want to make sure to say this at the very outset of the show today. I want to make this clear for everyone out there. The Georgia Bulldogs landed a straight-up difference maker today in Jared Curtis, the first top-ranked quarterback that Georgia has landed since 2018. Yep, Justin Fields, 2018 was that long ago. And look, guys, we've been in the thick of it for some of the top quarterbacks in the last couple of classes. You look at Arch Manning. Remember, we were right there with Arch Manning. He came to Georgia a ton of times. Ultimately ended up picking Texas. Dylan Raiola, we all know how that saga played out. Don't need to relive that. We know how that went. And then that same class, Julian Sayin. We were right there. If it wasn't going to be Raiola when we were trying to get him back in the fold, but we weren't sure maybe it was going to be Sayin. We've been there, guys. We've been right in the mix for all these quarterbacks. We just haven't quite been able to land them. We've been the bridesmaid. That's the reality. Over the past couple of cycles, we've been in it. We've been recruiting these guys hard. They've been interested. They've been coming on visits to Georgia. But at the end of the day, when it's time for them to make their decisions, we have been the bridesmaid in these big 5-star quarterback sweepstakes over the past couple of years. Yeah, I know. We did get Brock Vandagriff back in, 2021, I want to say is when he committed. And look, I know that technically Vandagriff was a 5-star with the On3 industry rankings, which is what I go by. I follow the industry rankings. I think that the composite there, that's the easiest way to go about things. So technically, with the On3 industry rankings, Brock was a 5-star, but he just wasn't the same caliber quarterback as Jared Curtis is. He's just not, guys. So he only had one service. Brock was a highly rated guy, but there's only one of the 4 big recruiting services that had him ranked as a 5-star. Only one had him, I think it was Rivals, the one that was the outlier, had him top 5 in the country. But other than Rivals, no other recruiting service had Vandagriff ranked higher than number 34. Curtis, on the other hand, is a 5-star prospect in 3 of the 4. I think On3 is the lone holdout right there with their own individual rankings. But he's top 5 in 3 of the 4 recruiting services out there in the On3 industry rankings. He's the number 6 overall prospect in the country and the #1 quarterback in the country. And guys, if you just watch the tape, if you go back and you watch Vandagriff's tape in high school, which was good, don't get me wrong, it was good, but then you compare that to what you see with the tape of Curtis out there, which, by the way, is only sophomore tape. That's all we have out there to go off of. Even as a sophomore, it's just clear, if you know what you're looking for, that he is a different caliber quarterback than Brock Vandagriff was coming out of high school. So big news for the Dogs. And we're going to, again, break this down from every angle. But let's start with the why really quickly. We kind of talked about this last week when I kind of previewed the decision and gave you my final prediction that he was going to end up as a Georgia Bulldog. But I think there's a couple things here, okay? #1, I don't think you can get past this. I think some of these guys still care about winning. I know not everyone cares about it the way they used to, right? A lot of guys are driven more by the financial aspects. And don't get me wrong, the financial aspect of this was a factor for Curtis. That was a factor of why he decommitted in the first place, to get on the open market, got an agent, all that kind of stuff. The things that all these big-time prospects, certainly big-time quarterbacks, are doing. But Curtis still seems like everything you hear about him, everything you read about him, everything that you hear him talk about, he's a guy that still wants to win. Money matters, of course, but he still wants to win. And Georgia wins year in, year out. Some years are better than others, but every year we have a contender. We are a big-time program, and this program is run like a big-time program. And I think that is attractive to a quarterback when a lot of different schools might be offering you big paydays. Well, what could be a separator? I think that could be a separator there for the Georgia Bulldogs. And this is where a lot of you Bobo haters, again, you might want to plug your ears. You're not going to want to hear this. But Mike Bobo was a major driving force behind Jared Curtis ultimately choosing Georgia. In fact, in terms of other than the program just being what it has been, this dominant program in recent years and just winning year after year after year, Kirby's obviously a big part of that because he's the captain of the ship. But in terms of the individual recruitment of Jared Curtis, I think you make a strong argument that Mike Bobo has had more of an influence on this recruitment than any other person in the Georgia program, other than maybe Kirby Smart. But Bobo has been the driving force, guys. He's the one that's made a ton of visits. Of course, Kirby's visited with him, but he's the one that sold him the offense, sold him on how he's used quarterbacks in the past. He's built the relationship, that close relationship with Curtis and his family, too. His family swears by Bobo as well. So I know some people hate Bobo. I get it. I understand it. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I know that. We'll talk more about that later this offseason. But in this one case, now you might have no trust in Bobo to actually use him appropriately and get the most out of him. Maybe that's how you feel. But the fact is, Jared Curtis would not be a Georgia Bulldog if it was not for Mike Bobo. And I know some people have a really hard time giving that man credit for anything. But let's at least try to be objective, right? And understand that he played a huge role in this. Proximity, of course, and being a Nashville kid, it's just easier. It's just easier to get to Georgia, not just for him personally to travel back and forth, but like we talked about last week, his family. They got to come watch his games, right? They want to come visit this kid. It's a lot easier for them to get in the car and drive to Georgia or just hop on a plane and make a short plane ride to Atlanta. And I'm sure with all the money he's going to have, they can probably just do fly private into BNF's Air, and they'll be on campus in 10 minutes, right? That's a lot easier than having to go literally across country to the Pacific Northwest. So I do think that was certainly a factor here. Another thing that I think plays in this as well that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about, but let's go back to last year, right? Julian Lewis, Juju Lewis, Carrollton High School, Georgia kid, right? He was supposed to be a part of this class, right? This 2026 class. He reclassified, ended up being a part of the 2025 class. He went to Colorado, right? If I remember correctly. But, we were in it for Lewis, in and out of it. He's going back and forth. That recruitment went a bunch of different ways. But there was a time where we tried to get back in it after he kind of decommitted from USC, right? But we kind of made a decision that we're going to put our eggs in the Curtis basket. And I think that spoke volumes to Curtis and his family about how we felt about him. Those kind of gestures, that's every coach can tell you, oh yeah, man, we love you. We think you're the best quarterback. But we're you know what, we're going in on you, man. This other kid, yeah, but you're our guy. You're our guy. And if you tell us no, then we'll go find somebody else. But you're going to have to tell us no. You are the guy. I think that certainly speaks volumes to the kid about how you feel about him, and think that kind of hits him a certain kind of way. I also think, as I laid out last week, our quarterback depth chart is enticing. I think Gunnar Stockton he's going to be the guy this year. I'm becoming more and more of a believer in Gunnar with every time I see him, and I hope that once the season actually gets here, he gives me even more reasons to believe in him. And look, maybe Gunnar will shock me and be a guy that's going to be an NFL type guy after this year. I just don't know if that's in Gunnar's future. That's okay. Stetson, I know Stetson's in the NFL right now, but he wasn't a first-round type guy who was going to leave early, right? But he could be a guy that can hang on in the NFL. I just don't see Gunnar as a guy that's going to be a first-round type guy after this year. I just don't. So kind of like Stetson, that doesn't mean you can't win at a high level for Georgia and be a really good college quarterback just because you're not a first-round prospect at the quarterback position. But I see Gunnar staying this year and probably next year as well. So why does that matter? What that means is Curtis gets to come in here, have a year to sit in redshirt and just soak it in and learn. And look, he's never going to have the exact amount of experience in the system as the guys who he'll be competing against post-Gunnar, the guys like Ryan Puglisi and Ryan Montgomery and Hezekiah Millender. But having that at least one full year to sit and learn and go through practice and adjust, I think that is enough to give him a shot to have a much better chance to win that open competition post-Gunnar than if Gunnar would leave after this year, because he's coming in as a true freshman with no time in the system, no time to adjust to the flow of practice, the speed of things, all that kind of stuff. I think the quarterback depth chart, the way it sets up right now, is really enticing for a guy like Jared Curtis to eventually be the guy as a redshirt freshman, have at least 2 years to play at Georgia. And of course, again, you can't escape the money aspect of this. I'm not sitting here to tell you that we made the biggest offer. I don't know what our offer was. I'm not privy to those things. All I can tell you is people I trust here in Athens, people that I know that would know these things. had made it very clear that we made a competitive offer, that we were not going to lose out on Curtis because we got outbid. Like, we were going to do what we had to do to at least keep in the ballpark to where we could get this kid. So that was a part of it as well, but it was more than just one thing. I think all those things kind of combined for Georgia to ultimately be able to land the number one quarterback, the first number one quarterback the Dogs have landed since 2018. So that's the why. Wanted to start there. But let's get into what I think is a far more important piece to this, and what I'm far more interested in. Honestly, at heart, guys, I'm a hardcore football guy. I'm a nuts and bolts, X's and O guy. That's what I talk about. So let's get into the part of how good is this guy? How good is Jared Curtis? Is he deserving of the number one prospect, or the number one quarterback prospect in the country? Well, I'm going to go back to what I said at the very outset of the show. All right, let's rewind the clock here. I'll say it again for you. Jared Curtis is a straight up difference maker at the quarterback position. All right, I've said it before. I'll say it again for those of you who kind of are just getting involved with the Curtis recruitment right now. He was the Mr. Football runner-up in the state of Tennessee, which doesn't have the highest level of high school football in the country, but it's still the South, right? They still have some good football there. The Mr. Football runner-up in the entire state of Tennessee as a freshman in high school. That's the kind of guy that we're talking about here, okay? That's what got him on everybody's radar. That's what got him on Georgia's radar. That doesn't happen by accident. You've got to be good. You got to be different. You got to be special, and that's what this guy is. And look, I will address this. I get the knock on him, that the concern that some people might have is the same concern that I personally had about Brock Vandegrift. And it's the fact that he plays at a small private school. And it's not even a small private school in Georgia. It's a small private school in Tennessee. And Tennessee, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't play the same level of high school football that Georgia does, right? So I had that concern about Brock Vandegrift. But I'll go back to what I said about Curtis, kind of comparing him to Vandegrift. He's just a different caliber prospect. Go run the tapes, guys. If you don't believe me, if you think that I'm just blowing smoke here and you thought I was saying the same things about Vandegrift that I'm saying about Curtis right now, and I just say the same thing about every five-star quarterback that we're after, go back and run the tapes, guys. I've been doing this podcast for a decade now, almost 11 years now. Go run the tapes, go find it, and you would not hear me anywhere talking about Brock Vandegrift the way that I am talking about Jared Curtis right now, because I didn't feel the same. I thought he was a good prospect, but I didn't think he was like a can't miss kind of. I don't like the word can't miss. I don't like to speak in absolutes. I just did not see him as the caliber quarterback with the skill set that Jared Curtis brings to the table. And I do understand the level of competition argument with Curtis coming from a private school. I do understand that. I'm sensitive to that. I do factor that in when I do my evaluations. But what you have to look for when you're evaluating prospects coming from those smaller schools, like the 1A schools, the private schools, is you have to ask yourself this question. Is he making those plays just because of the subpar nature of the competition that he is playing against? Or is he making those plays because of a skill set that will translate to the next level? And admittedly, sometimes that can be hard to discern. I think it's much more difficult to discern when you're talking about offensive linemen, defensive linemen, guys where physicality is what makes them special. Because if you're talking about this big 340-pound offensive lineman, he's a five-star guy, and he's playing in single-A private, and he's just like dominating the competition. It's like, well, yeah, the guy's blocking every Friday. It's 175 pounds soaking wet. He's a 340-pounder D1 prospect. Of course he's going to dominate. If you're a five-star defensive tackle and you're going against an offensive lineman that's 200 pounds, yeah, you're going to dominate. And so that makes it sometimes harder. It's harder to look for, okay, what is the skill set? Like, what is the burst off the ball? What is your athleticism? What is your twitch? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for your skill set, not so much how much you're dominating the competition. When I'm watching tape on Jared Curtis, I'm not looking for how many touchdowns did you throw. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking at the specific skills, the traits that I think translate to the next level. And that can be hard sometimes. I think it's easier when you're going to quarterback as opposed to a position that's more based on like physicality, like the lines of scrimmage, the trenches. But here's what I see when I turn on the tape of Jared Curtis, right? Again, there's not much tape out there. All he had, but this, I think this is more impressive than anything. The tape that you have out there on Huddle to operate off of, it's a 6-minute tape of his sophomore year, all right? There's no junior tape out there, guys. I've looked everywhere. I've scoured the known world for a junior tape. I haven't found it. I found like small little clips from like an individual play here and there from a game, but not full on like 5-6 minutes of highlights. I can't find that, okay? But the fact that his sophomore tape is as good as it is, that blows my mind. And you see why, as a freshman, why he was Mr. Football, runner-up for Mr. Football in the state of Tennessee. the quality of the sophomore tape is unbelievable. The level of polish for that kid as a sophomore in high school, the things he's doing as a sophomore in high school, it's ridiculous. I cannot wait to see where he is this year. So I'm gonna do my best. So there's a site that I use. I'll be all over him this year watching. Was it NFHS? Some of you might be familiar with that, but it's basically it's a site that you pay like $11.99 a month, and you have access to most schools out there if they film their games. I'm gonna look and see if his high school actually does that in Nashville, because if they do, I'll be watching every game so I can get the full game and not just the highlights. But the sophomore tape's all that's out there, but I think that's really impressive that he's so good on the sophomore tape. But when you watch that tape, what you see is a wide range of elite traits that I absolutely believe will translate to the next level. So let's just run through a little bit here, guys. Number one, the first thing that I see on tape that stands out to me more than anything with Jared Curtis is the truly elite ball placement. His ball placement, his ability to place the ball where he wants to, seemingly at will, is wildly absurd. It's crazy, guys. Back shoulder, absolutely. It doesn't matter if it's at 10 yards down the field, is it 30 yards down the field, fit the ball into a tight window between two defenders. Wherever he needs to place that football to complete the pass, he can do that. And that's a skill that translates, guys. What you also have to remember with a guy like Jared Curtis coming from single A private, like he might be playing a single A private competition. The guys that are on his team are also single A private players. Okay, so it's not like his receivers are getting a ton of separation from the DBs out there. It's not like his offensive line is giving him all day back there, because they're basically the same caliber as the guys they're blocking, right? The receivers are the same caliber as the guys they're trying to defend them out there in the secondary. So there are tight windows that he has to fit the ball into, and his ability to do that is off the charts, man. Off the charts. Back shoulder stuff, putting the ball where the receiver needs it to in order to complete that pass. Unbelievable. The accuracy is fantastic, guys. And so along with that, the ability to layer throws in between different levels of the defense, which that is a skill, man. That is something that some quarterbacks just can't do. They cannot do that. They can drive the football, throw the ball 100,000 miles an hour, right? Like let's say a Joe Milton, right? Yeah, I mean, think about the lead up was the 2023 season. Everyone losing their mind. Oh, did you see Joe Milton throw the ball 85 yards in the air? Yeah, I did. But have you seen this guy be able to layer a ball between the linebackers and the safeties? No, you haven't, because he can't do it, right? So the ability to layer those throws is something that you either got or you don't, and he can do it. And beyond that, though, it's not that he's just like one of those guys that just has an average arm. He can layer throws, but he can't really push the ball vertically, can't fit into tight windows. No, total package with that arm talent, man. Yeah, it can layer throws, but an elite arm talent, elite arm strength that can push the ball vertically. I call it effortless. When I watch him throw, I think it's effortless arm strength. He's also consistently on time with his throws, which that's something that can you develop that more as you progress as a quarterback? Yes, but with him as a sophomore, the timing of his throws, it's just crazy, man, to see that on tape like that. And then what makes him, so there's a lot of quarterbacks that have good arms. There's a lot of quarterbacks that can layer throws, that can be on time with throws. But I think one of the things that separates him is he can do those things, but the athleticism and just like I can't help but call the magic in his game. He's got that Patrick Mahomes-esque skill set. I'm not calling him Patrick Mahomes, all right? We're not there yet. But the things that Patrick Mahomes can do that makes Patrick Mahomes, right, is the ability to throw off platform, to create when nothing's there. He's a really good athlete, not a Jalen Milroe type athlete. You're not going to do the same design QB run stuff you would do with Milroe, although you can do some design QB run stuff with him, certainly more so than what we've had in the past. But he's got really good athleticism. I think better athleticism than a guy like Patrick Mahomes. But the ability to throw off platform when things break down, to throw from different arm angles, and to throw with accuracy off platform in arm angles. Some guys try to throw off platform, but it's not even close to the receiver. But his ability to do all of that, different arm angles, off platform, and still be accurate and place the football where it needs to be placed, it's wild. It's crazy, crazy stuff. So that athleticism allows him to also create outside the pocket, which we know was an issue for our quarterback over the last 2 years, especially when you have an offensive line that wasn't consistently protecting him this year, was a problem. When he gets outside the pocket, he's also accurate throwing the ball on the run, and he just has that knack. It's hard to define. It really is. It's one of those indefinable things, but he has this knack for making the insanely ridiculous, absurd play just kind of seem like ho-hum, routine. He just is one of those kind of guys. He just has that magic. Again, there's that word again. He has that magic in his game, and I think he's better than Johnny Manziel long term. Different kind of quarterback, but I think he has the slightest touch. I thought Johnny Manziel in his game where he just can, like, when things break down, there's nothing there, he just finds a way to make plays. Now, some of that a function of what you see on tape? Is that a function of the single A private stuff? That's where I'll say maybe. Like, there were a couple throws on his high school tape where you're like, yeah, I probably wouldn't have made that throw. Like, you do that in the SEC, that's probably not going to work. Like, you're just like falling away, just throwing the ball up for grabs. Like, yeah, okay, you got a 5'4" DB out there. That's probably why that worked. So there's some of that. I will admit that. But they're also like just he's able to get outside the pocket, and guys are all over him. Just throw off platform and to make those throws of magical plays. He's got it. He's got that in his game. So that's what makes this guy unique. And here's the other thing too. He does all of that in a 6'3", maybe like 6'4", depending on what service you look at, 6'3", 6'4" frame, 225-pound frame. That is why this guy is a difference maker. It's that combination of the physical tools, right? The physical traits, the size, the athleticism that he has, and the advanced polished skill set that he brings to the table at this stage in development. That's what makes this guy a difference maker, in my opinion. So I've established I think this guy's awesome. I think he's an elite quarterback prospect, difference maker. But what does that mean? Like, what does that mean for Georgia? Why should we care? Like, why am I so excited about letting this guy? Because Georgia's a program that lands 5-star guys. It's kind of what we do, right? Like, we land 5-star guys. That's not unique to us. But why am I over the moon about this particular 5-star guy? Well, as I told you last week, I'll double down on it right here. I do think this is arguably, I think I would make the argument, the most important recruiting win in years for Georgia football. And again, like we land 5-star prospects all the time. I understand that, guys. I follow this closer than just about anybody out there. Right? I follow it very closely. I'm a diehard, just like you guys are. That's what this show is, of, for, and by the diehard fans. I understand like how we recruit, and I know that we've landed like top 5 players on a pretty routine basis. Certainly 5-star players on a pretty routine basis. I mean, just a couple years ago, Ellis Robinson the 4th, number 2 player overall in the country as a cornerback, right? Nolan Smith, back when he was coming out of high school, was the number 1 player in the country. Got Michael Williams, who was a top 10 guy. Malachi Starks, the top 10 guy from Jefferson. Justin Fields, back, I know it was a while ago now, about 8 years ago, but he was the number 2 player overall in the country, number 1 quarterback. Keely Ringo was a top 5 player, believe it or not, back in the day. Amarius Mims, list goes on, right? We've had some big-time guys that we've landed. So what makes this one different? Like, why am I so excited about this? And I was excited about those guys too, don't get me wrong, but why am I even more excited about this one? Well, the reason for that is landing Jared Curtis means that we are in very good hands. As good a hands I think we could possibly be in at the most important position on a team moving forward. And let me address that real quickly here, guys, because I do. Call me crazy, but I firmly believe that in modern football, quarterback is the single most important position on any team. That's nothing new for me. You've heard me say that for a long time. If you've been in this podcast for a long time, if you're new to the show, maybe it's the first time you're finding us, maybe it's the first time you heard me say that. But I firmly believe that as a general rule. And honestly, I don't even think that's a controversial thing to say. I don't say that as to like be a hot take. I think that is kind of just how it is. But I have found out recently that some people disagree. I know I did a video last week, an episode last week about Jared Curtis and previewing that decision, talk about why I thought it was a huge deal, and said I think it would be one of the biggest recruiting wins in years for the Kirby Smart era. Some people were like, well, dude, like Jackson Cantwell, who, well, by the way, we'll get to him a little bit later on. He's the number 1 player in the country, offensive tackle. Like, he'd be significantly a bigger fish to land than Jared Curtis. And offensive tackles are more important. Did you not see what our offensive line was last year? It's like, yeah, I get it. Like, of course, offensive tackles are a big deal. Like, you want to have elite offensive tackles. You want to have elite defensive linemen. I would put quarterback 1. I put offensive tackle, edge rusher, defensive tackle. That would kind of be my top 4 there. But I still believe quarterback's the most important position on the team. I firmly believe that. And I do also believe at the same time, I think both things can be true, that football is the ultimate team sport. I will readily agree with people who want to say that. Of course, yes, that's one of the beautiful things about football, in my opinion, is that it truly is the ultimate team sport. Because with football, the outcome of any given play, like it's kind of contingent upon 10 other players. Like, you might be the best player in your position, you might do your job, but the play might not work because you got 10 other guys out there that the success of the play is contingent on whether or not they did their job. Any one guy messes up and, the play might not work. So yeah, it all works together. I absolutely get that. I agree with that. But again, if I'm trying to place a value on individual positions. I just place more value on the quarterback position. I think it holds more value than the others. Why? Well, let's start with this. Quarterback and center are the only positions on the team that are guaranteed to touch the ball on every single play. Running backs touch the ball a lot. Receivers will touch the ball a lot. Tight ends from time to time. But there's two players that are guaranteed to touch the ball on every single play. And one of them is the quarterback, right? And honestly, on top of that, once he does touch the ball, the sheer quantity of decisions that are on the shoulders of the quarterback that he has to make on every single play, I think it just outweighs those of other positions. I know every position has decisions they have to make. There are nuances to every position, of course. I just think there's more nuances and more decisions that are on the shoulders of a quarterback. You have to diagnose, let's run through what a quarterback's doing on any given play. Pre-snap, you got to diagnose what coverage the defense is in, what front the defense is in, what look they're in, are they showing pressure? You have to diagnose all of that pre-snap to determine, are we in the correct play? Do I need to get us out of this play? Even if it's a run play, do I need to move the direction of the run? Do I need to change the run? Do I need to audible out of a run? If it's a pass play, do I need to audible out of that and audible to a run? Do I need to audible to a screen, right? The quarterback is the one making those decisions before the ball is even snapped, right? And then once the ball is snapped, post-snap, he's now got to read the movements of the defense. Does the defense show one look pre-snap and then go to something totally different post-snap? A lot of defenses do that, guys. They try to disguise coverages, right? And then even if it is the correct coverage that you diagnose pre-snap, what are their movements? Are they biting on this route coming underneath them, or are they staying in the deep half? Like, there's a variety of things post-snap that the quarterback has to then also diagnose. Then once he diagnosed that, he's got to determine, okay, where do I go with the football? Where is the correct place to go with this football? And then once he determines, okay, I'm going to throw the football here, you got to determine what type of pass am I going to throw? Am I going to rifle the ball in there? Am I going to put some touch on this football? Where am I going to throw it? Am I going to put it on his front shoulder? Am I going to put it on his back shoulder? I have to put it up here. Where do I have to put that football relative to the defender in order for this pass to be complete? And you have to do all of that while 4 or 5, maybe sometimes 6 opposing defenders are trying to detach your head from your body on that same play. And then once you make all those decisions, right, you go through all that in the span of about 3 seconds-ish, then you have to actually be able to physically execute the play, right? And that, to me, is just far more responsibility on any given play than any other player on the offense from a single position. Okay, personally, there's a reason why 19 of the 26 number 1 overall NFL draft picks this century have been quarterbacks. There's a reason why the 14 highest paid players in the NFL in 2025 are going to be quarterbacks. Yeah, Jamar Chase, number 15. You go all the way down to number 15 to find the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL in 2025. And I would also argue this, that a truly elite quarterback can elevate the players around him and can mitigate maybe some holes, some talent deficiencies that you have elsewhere on your roster. And look, if you don't have an elite quarterback, like, you can win. There are examples of teams that have won without having an elite quarterback, a la Ohio State this year, right? But in order for you to win without having a truly elite quarterback, you've got to be stacked elsewhere. You got to have a $20 million roster, like whatever they spend in the NIL. They've had more than $20 million. That's just what they spent on NIL coming in last year. You got to have 2 studs at running back, right? You got to have the best receiver in the country. You got to have another first-round guy at receiver along with him. You got to have a lot of really good offensive linemen, right? You got to be elite everywhere else around the quarterback if you want to win a national championship and you don't have an elite quarterback. Will Howard's good, not elite, right? And I think Clemson's a great example of this, kind of the inverse here. So Clemson won those national titles, right? And they were really good. But 6 consecutive college football playoffs they made. Part of that is they played in the ACC. Yeah, of course. But they also had just elite quarterback play for a number of years. You go from Deshaun Watson to Trevor Lawrence, right? You have those 2 guys back to back. And Clemson they did recruit at a high level. They still recruit at a high level, just not at like a consistently elite level. They recruited at a really, really good level, like top 10-ish. This year they're having a really good year recruiting, but they're not like I wouldn't call them a recruiting superpower. They're a really strong recruiting program, but not like Georgia, Ohio State, Texas. They're not. And they had other good players around those quarterbacks. Yes, they had Mike Williams, right? Like you have ETN, like you have some good players, but they had elite quarterbacks. And their offensive line for years wasn't that good. Like and I said that coming into the 2021 season, right? We played them in 2021. I was like, yeah, we're going to win this game because their offensive line isn't good. And I said it coming in last year, the offensive line's still not good. We're going to win this game because they're not going to be able to block us, right? And that's been a problem for Clemson for a while. So they have good players relative to most of the teams they play, but like when you go against a team like Georgia that recruits the way that we do, they don't have those elite guys up front, right? But when they have the truly elite quarterbacks, it mitigated the deficiencies, relative to the other elite teams in the country that they had elsewhere on the roster, right? So I think there's two general ways to win a title. If you're serious about winning a national title, you have an elite quarterback, and then you're good to really good everywhere else around the quarterback, which is kind of what Clemson was when they were winning national titles, right? Making it to those college football playoffs. They were elite at quarterback and good to really, really good elsewhere. They might have an elite receiver here or there, right? But like elite players weren't littered all across the offense. That's option one. Or B, you can be elite everywhere else and have a good to really good quarterback, which is kind of the Ohio State formula from this past year. And maybe you could say that was our formula back in 2021, right? When Stetson Bennett was not the same Stetson he was in 2022. And I just simply think in the age of NIL, the age of the transfer portal, it is now far more difficult for a team to stack your roster, to have elite players up and down your roster. Okay, Ohio State did it last year. But is that a sustainable thing? Like, can they go spend $20 million in transfer portal every single year? Well, they didn't do it this year, seemingly, right? So I don't know if that's a sustainable thing, right? And I just don't know. Go back to like we kind of did it ourselves back in 2021, right? Like we were awesome around Stetson. Stetson was good in 2021, not what he was in 2022, but good enough, right? But we were just so stacked around him offensive line. You got Brock Bowers, you got A.D. Mitchell, you've got James Cook, you got Zamir White. I mean, you're just loaded around him, right? Well, I just don't know if we'll ever be able to win a national championship using that same formula again. I'm not saying it's impossible. I don't know if it's the most likely or the fastest, most effective way to go about it. Because I just don't think that you can stack depth like that the way that we once did. All those guys that we once would get before NIL in the portal, well, now they're portaling out. They're not playing right away, right? And they're trying to get their payday somewhere else. So, hey, I was a 5-star guy coming to high school. I was a high 4-star guy. I don't want why sit on the bench here when I can go somewhere else, play, and I can also demand a premium and like create a bidding war for me for my services when I get in the transfer portal. So we're just not able to we would do a really good job of retaining. We do retain better than most programs out there. But the fact is we still just don't have the quality depth that we once did. Okay? So how do you mitigate that, right? How do you mitigate that? How do you overcome the realities that the NIL and transfer portal combination has created? Well, you go find yourself an elite quarterback. That's what you do. You go with that option where you have an elite quarterback and you're good to really good around him, and you can still go win yourself a national title. And I think, guys, that, look, we might already have one on campus for the future. Like Ryan Puglisi might be that guy for the future. Maybe Ryan Montgomery, he comes back from injury. Maybe Hezekiah Millender, when he gets up to speed and he learns how to play that position and learns how to do things at quarterback. Maybe we already have an elite quarterback on campus. We have some really good prospects. I like that. I love Puglisi. You guys know this. But you want as much talent on hand at that position as you can possibly find. Like you just want to make sure you're insulated. That, well, if this guy didn't pan out the way we thought it would, we got this other guy, right? You want those guys to push each other and just let it play out. Get as much talent as you can in that room and let it play out. And look, I know, guys, go back to what I said with Bobo. I know there's plenty of questions from some of you out there about how Mike Bobo is going to use him. I know that there's some skepticism out there because I know there's some Bobo haters. I get it, right? But the fact is, here's what I'll say with the Bobo thing real quick. The fact is, Bobo has never quite had a quarterback like Jared Curtis. He's had some really good quarterbacks. Obviously, Matthew Stafford, right? Aaron Murray, Carson Beck, who's, say what you want about Carson. He's a good quarterback when conditions around him are what he needs in order to be successful, which is like a clean pocket, pretty much, right? He's a good quarterback. He's been around some good quarterbacks, but no one quite with the skill set that Jared Curtis brings to the table, right? So I will tell you, I don't know. I don't know how Mike Bobo will make use of Jared Curtis. I'm not going to pretend to know because we don't really have any evidence to tell us one way or the other. He hasn't really worked with a guy like him. Now he's working as an offensive analyst when we had Stetson Bennett and our guy Todd Monken, everyone still loves, and I still love Todd Monken. He gave Bobo a lot of credit for some of the things that we were doing in the run game, especially the QB run game. The touchdown that Stetson scored in the Peach Bowl, I believe it was, around the end there. We pulled some guards, pulled a guard and tackle in front of them. Post-game, Monken gave credit to Bobo for that, right? So there's that, but there's not a ton of evidence. So I don't know. I can't tell you that, there's no reason to worry. Of course he's going to figure it out. I do think more highly of Bobo than the average Georgia fan, but that's neither here nor there. But I can't tell you with a straight face that I'm 100% confident he will maximize the skill set that Jared Curtis brings to the table. I do think, like, if I do have a criticism of Mike Bobo, I've said it many times, I do think that sometimes personnel utilization has been an issue, whether it's Benjamin Urosik from last year, who I still can't believe we did what we did to that guy, or even Dominic Lovett not using his skill set the way that I think we could have used his skill set last year. So I do agree that has been a problem at times, but I can't say in this instance with the quarterback, will Bobo waste him? I know some people are convinced that's going to happen. I just don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. I'm willing to let it play out, all right? I'm willing to give the guy a shot and see how it plays out. And I will say, like, at least look at what Bobo's done with other high-level quarterbacks. Like Aaron Murray, I know was an NFL guy, high-level college quarterback, at the time produced the best offense in Georgia football history. Like still one of the two best offenses in Georgia football history with Aaron Murray, okay? And I love Aaron Murray. Jared Curtis is a different caliber guy. He's a bigger guy, better athlete, better arm strength, all those things. And I loved Murray, right? Still love Aaron Murray. So he's done good things. Obviously, Matthew Stafford, he's done good things with quarterbacks. Even if you don't want to give him credit for that, he has. I know this is a different kind of quarterback with a different skill set, and there's some concern, like, will he use him the right way? Let's give him a shot. I don't know. I can't tell you definitively he will, but let's give him a shot. I'm willing to give him a shot. But regardless of how Bobo ends up using him, he's a big reason why the guy's here. And make no mistake about it, Georgia landed itself a legitimate difference maker at the most important position on the team today in Jared Curtis. So that, along with, of course, all the other elite players that we'll always continue to have on this roster under Kirby Smart, that's going to keep us in position to compete for national titles for years and years to come. And that, my friends, is why I'm so excited about this commitment. I know it's just one player. I know football is the ultimate team sport, but when you land a guy like this at the most important position, at least as far as I'm concerned, you have landed yourself a difference maker, and today is a cause for celebration for all Georgia Bulldogs out there. But all right, guys, thank you so much for being here today. I sincerely appreciate it. We do have another recruitment coming up here. I think it's the 13th or 14th. I want to say the 13th, actually. Jackson Cantwell, the number 1 overall prospect in the country, offensive tackle. Be great to pair him with Jared Curtis. He delayed his commitment a couple weeks ago. I think that was good news for us. So we're not done talking recruiting, guys. This is the time of year that recruiting is heating up, and there's a lot more to come the rest of this summer. So again, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to this channel right now if you like this kind of content. It's for you guys, man. All you diehards out there who made it through this video, I produce content for you guys. That's why we started this podcast over a decade ago. So make sure you subscribe, like, comment, get on the conversation, start the conversation. We'd love to hear from you guys. I know not everyone agrees with me, and that's okay. That's okay. It's okay to respectfully disagree. I would love to hear from you guys. I'll do my very best to respond to all those comments out there. I'll try. Do my very best. But thank you again, guys. Appreciate you. I'm Tyler, and as always, go Dogs.
Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight. 26-21. Dogs on top.